Hello there and welcome back. So today I'm talking about my new blog, which is Optimism in the Face of Adversity. And I wanted to cover this because last week I talked about how I'd broken a glass and how I tried to turn this into something that was lucky. But it struck me when I was captioning up the video that that was a bit trivial. And for some of you, you're facing much more difficult circumstances than having broken a glass. So I wanted to come back to the subject, and I've written my blog thinking about how optimistic people actually cope when difficult things happen to them. And is there anything that we can learn from them? And I think that there are a number of lessons to draw from this. So I'd say to start with that optimistic people, they often think they're lucky because they imagine that things could be a lot worse than they actually are. And so in a sense what they're doing is counting their blessings. So an example of that is the one I used a week or so ago about imagine that a bank robber has broken into the bank as you're withdrawing some money and shoots you in the arm, and a lucky person might say, well, at least they didn't shoot me in the head. And that's an example of how a lucky person, an optimistic person, will approach difficult circumstances. They'll actually think, well, you know, it could be a lot worse. And there's a sort of at least factor that they use to cheer themselves up. And another thing that they do is they see how the situation could be used for good. So I use the example in the blog of someone who has been made redundant, and they might think to themselves, oh, well, you know, I'm going to have a month off now because I've got enough money to get through for the next couple of months. So something like that, they see if they can find the good in the situation. And if nothing else, they'll see a difficult situation as an opportunity for them to grow. And even if the situation is something that's occurred because they've made a mistake, they'll still see that as something that they can learn from, and they won't get cross with themselves. And I think this is often where others of us can fall down when we make mistakes, is that we have internalised the critical voice that perhaps we've experienced when we were younger, and we've got an inner critic, and so we don't need anybody to tell us we're an idiot or we're stupid because we tell ourselves that we are. But optimistic, lucky people don't tend to have that voice, or they don't listen to it very much, because what they do is they don't tend to blame themselves when they make mistakes. They'll just see it as an accident or something that happens, or they'll just see it as something that they can learn from, and that it's part of a learning process, and it's absolutely fine for them to have made a mistake, and they'll recover from it, and they'll approach it with a positive attitude. So that's all very well, but a lot of us don't actually feel terribly optimistic. So how can we try and turn things around for ourselves? And I think there's various strategies to help us, and I've put these in my blog. But briefly, it's things like recognising that we do actually have strengths. And I think a lot of the time, because we listen to our inner critic, we focus on our lack rather than our abundance of strengths. And especially if we've been brought up in difficult circumstances, I think we can have an enormous number of strengths that go unnoticed. We don't really recognise what it is that we have learned through our difficult circumstances. And it's amazing to see people who can emerge from the most difficult of circumstances wiser, more determined, and can be actually really successful. And that's because they have forged character through the difficult circumstances, and they've grown their resilience, and that enables them to actually become very successful. And really it's a case of believing in ourselves, and part of that starts with actually looking at situations in a slightly different way, and actually making that effort to see what is good about a situation, to see what is good about ourselves in that situation, to see how we've used situations in our lives in a positive way. And there's no need to believe that just because things have happened to us in the past, that means we're always going to fail. We can turn things around. And that's what my blog is all about if you'd like to read it. And you can see it at thegoodenougghmum.com optimism.com/blog, and you'll find it there. And as I say at the bottom of the blog, I am available for counselling and for coaching. So if you'd like to meet up with me or have an online session with me, please do feel free to contact me either through the Messenger app on Facebook, or you can email me, or you can phone me, and the details are on the internet, either at thegoodenoughmum.com or at talktojoe.co.uk. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.